Coming up.
So she I don't remember what she did. She did something probably stupid. Not because she's stupid, but just it's small things that she knew better than to do, and she did. And I was like, gosh, I told her what would happen if she did it again is that she was going to go in a timeout for a half hour, which is a long time, but it's it's the only way she'll listen is when it's boring. So I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I told her I would do it. And then I was like, gosh, but I always do that. I always stick to it because I was always told, don't be wishy-washy when you tell them to punish them. You have to stick to it. And I'm like, yeah, but what if you did what you guys have always said, which is, every now and then, switch it to grace so they can get the concept. And I remember I talked to you about it, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I forget exactly what I did, but I basically was like, you're not going into timeout. And not only are you not going into timeout, but because we love you and we want to show you the grace that God has, right? It was trying to show her an example. I think we gave her something.
Like a dessert.
We gave her a dessert. And she was just I think she was just in shock, whoa, hold on.
And I like that
awesome.
You didn't just do the action. You took the time to explain to her, this was what you deserved to get was this time out.
Very good.
And because you did this thing and we warned you and this is what you should have done. But yes, because we want to show you what grace is, that's why we're doing this. You didn't just leave it we're just going back on what we said. It's no
exactly.
big deal. It was no, it was a big deal. You broke what we said, but we're still going to give you grace.
Yeah.
So I think that's
awesome.
Really good for her. But.
Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of On the Table, boys.
And girls.
And girls.
Voice. The new voice means girls, too.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm really distracted trying to hold these things from falling over. Yeah, Taylor, you're introducing this. Go ahead. Take it.
Welcome, everyone. Tonight, I thought it'd be fun to talk about parenting. So we have Michael's going to very carefully don't drop our children.
Michael's skating off the side there.
Yeah. Come on.
We're going to pull it back. Pull it back.
All right.
Someone's going down.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, you lost your hair.
Well, no, that was your hair.
Oh,
We always knew it was a wig. For anyone just listening, we had little Lego characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, tonight, thought it'd be fun to talk about parenting, talk about, we haven't really done a full episode focused just on that. We've mentioned little things here and there, of course, in context of other videos, but just kind of, I don't know, talk about, we have 4 parents around the table here, kind of our thoughts and experiences, and I don't know, just open it up. So
Cool.
Does anybody have anything they want to start off with, or?
I think the big thing in my opinion is that parenting with grace, I think, is a topic that a lot of people probably don't think about too much, that to really infuse grace in your parenting and the ways that we can do that, I think that might be interesting to put on the table.
For sure.
We're jumping right into it.
Yeah. And I think, just overarching, I think the biggest thing, obviously, I would say would be, do you love your children? If you're coming from a place of love and you're seeking God, that's what's most important. The little details aren't as important. And I think sometimes we get really caught up in all the little details of parenting and probably way overthink a lot of things if you're me. But I think I sometimes have to remind myself, okay, am I seeking God? Am I doing my best? Am I trying my best to do what I believe is what's best for them in love? And that's, at the end of the day, what's going to matter most. So I think just as an overarching thing, we can talk about more details for the fun of it, but kind of want to start with that. But
no, I think that's good. We should just end.
So yeah, there you go.
That's good.
Maybe we should describe, since a lot of people don't know us, we don't need to name names and show pictures and stuff like that, but just maybe we talk about the fact that we are parents and parents of what kids and all that kind of stuff, we have.
You guys go ahead.
All right. You go ahead.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, go for us. We are parents.
Your kids would be the same as mine.
You just said you didn't know. So Taylor is mine because you didn't claim her.
There you go.
No, we have 3 grown children. We had a boy and then we had a girl. And then we adopted our third child, who is a girl. And they range from 25 to 33. So they're adults, and
So you're old.
we're old. And now we have grandchildren. So we get to
3 beautiful grandchildren.
So now we get to be the grand parents.
But yeah, we had children and adopted and raised them, and you homeschooled them, and I helped a little bit with that. But we, went through all of that kind of stuff, and I think it's,
And we've experienced the whole gamut of not all of the things, but a lot of the things that a lot of parents out there have experienced. We had teenagers, we had toddlers, we had, with the adoption, there was things with that. We've had medical scares. We've had a lot of things.
along with some less, just more usual things like different styles at times about what are, different opinions about how to raise the kids and how to discipline the kids and how to
Right.
do that kind of stuff. And,
Arguments.
Yeah.
I think it'll all
you know.
be good stuff to
I
dive
think if
into.
you love your kids enough, like you said, it's so important that's probably, even if you don't argue about a lot of other things, that is something you probably can argue about a little bit. And it's okay. That means that you really, really care.
Right.
And you want this thing to turn out right. They don't come with a manual. There's all sorts of advice, and some of it's good and some of it isn't. But the truth is that each kid is an individual. Like God actually created them to be an individual. So even if there is a great book, well, here's how all you need to know to raise a kid. Yeah, good luck with that. Your kid isn't going to fit that perfectly.
Yeah,
so.
I remember like reading all the pregnancy books and like the books about, newborns and all of that. And some of it was good, some of it I used. But I remember finding out very quickly that, my kid was doing things that didn't fit the book. And I was like, wait, what happens when this happens when they're 3 months old? And so
you should introduce our kids.
yeah, so we have 2 daughters. They are 5 and 8, basically, this month. And
Wow.
I homeschool them and have the whole time that our oldest has been in school. I'm going to start with our youngest this year, so
Good luck.
we'll see how that goes.
And they have different personalities for sure.
Totally,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
totally.
They're so
Yeah.
different. Yeah, we love them both. I love them both.
Yeah, I do too. Probably a little more, but
Yeah, what we found, it's funny you say they're individuals. Like that's what we found. Like we thought we had things down pat. You have your first kid, and you're like, okay, it's hard at first, and you kind of think you've got it figured out, and then the second one comes along, and they're different. And then in our case, the third one, she was so different. She just was completely different patterns, sleep patterns, or actually not sleep patterns.
No sleep
I don't
pattern.
think she slept through the night until she was like 7 or 8. And maybe not even then. I think I remember like being 7 and 8 and they're just still coming to try to wake us up. And I'm like, you're too old. I know you're not going to sleep through the night, but that's not going to be my problem. Just go back and do your own thing. So, but anyway.
Yeah, I think it would be cool for this discussion. I mean, obviously talking about the grace side and things that we've learned or we're still learning, right? Our kids are still fairly young and we're doing things right. We're doing things wrong, I'm sure. But I think also talking about the areas where we failed is just as important. Because I think those were the things that came naturally to us that maybe we shouldn't have acted on that were natural. And it's grace that's, doesn't come naturally. So where we failed that other parents might be dealing with. And then also,
Well, I mean, if you go ahead and show Taylor on the camera, you can see
this is how they failed.
yeah, but that's just your
Sorry.
face. It's like,
Oh my gosh, no.
We like to razz each other a lot
Yeah.
in these groups.
Definitely.
yeah. No, I think it would be good to talk about the good and the bad,
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we're going to talk about failures, then I do have something to talk about tonight. I'm like, I'm not sure I have a lot to talk about tonight for once, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I think as a parent, you feel like you try your best, right? Like if you, I like where you start off. You're like, if you love your kids, my first thought was, well, the poor people out there that are struggling with the answer to that. I'm not sure what I would tell them. If you don't love your kids, that's probably a different episode. We're going to assume that most people love their kids, even though you might struggle with them deep down in you love them.
Sure.
If you don't, that's probably something you need to talk to somebody about. But because you love them and you struggle with them, you want the best for them, but you don't, you've got your own life and stuff. So I think trying to get more specific instead of just keeping this up in the clouds. Like if you mention our failures, I'll start, I think, and failure is probably a tough word, but I like your challenge for that.
Sure.
Because, I hope we didn't fail, but for me, I was that balance between thinking, okay, well, I've got to provide, I was the breadwinner in our family. Whatever you think about that, whatever else, we're not, it's not that we legalistically thought we'd be that way or whatever else. That's just the way it turned out. Like I was the one going out and doing the career. Laurel could have too, but we just chose to do it that way, right? So, but just trying to find that balance sometimes of like, do I have enough time with my kids? But if you spend all day with your kids, you're not working, And in order to make enough money, because as you guys know, in this world, it's like there's never enough. It's always, there's always that big bill that came in that oh man, now we got to make up an extra $5,000 or $6,000. This days it's probably more like $30,000. But back when we were raising kids, it was the big $3,000 or $4,000 bill that was like, wow, and it just keeps piling on, or you get behind on your taxes, or you want things, or you want good things for your kids and your wife.
Braces.
And I think for me, the struggle was trying to figure out that balance. And I don't, you look back and beat yourself up and you think, maybe I didn't. There certainly was times where I was gone a lot because my job required me to travel early on. And some weeks I'd be gone for like the whole week, and just be back on the weekends and kind of barely there because I'm just so tired by the time I'm driving and doing all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I hope I wasn't a bad dad in that sense, and I'm not asking for placation. I'm more just answering your question.
Sure,
There's probably times I wasn't. There probably, I don't think I was really like an angry person. Praise God, I wasn't that. I'm not condemning people if you deal with anger issues, that kind of stuff. I just think I wish I would have been there more.
And I think that's something that probably all working parents struggle with.
Yeah,
and so
for sure.
I think it's even if you're the one staying home, I think you struggle with that balance between responsibilities and spending time with your kids. And I think sometimes it's really hard when you are at home because you're there, your kids kind of expect you to be available, and you can't always be available because there are still things you have to do as an adult. You still have responsibilities, even if you don't have a career. That's something I struggle with sometimes even now. Like, because, I do a lot of the chores around the house, or because I have to prepare for their schooling, or I have to do various things around, keep the home going, and so even that, it can be hard to, you feel bad sometimes because you're having to say no to them asking you to spend time with them because you have other things to do, and there's some sort of balance there, and it's really hard to figure that out sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with it. I struggle with it for another reason, though. It's not like I'm not saying you feel this way, but maybe I didn't spend as much time. It's more, sometimes I feel bad because sometimes I want to be alone. Because I work at home, and I feel bad. That's like a tough one because I struggle with that even nowadays. It's hard. Like, I work at home, and by the time I get done with work, the kids are right there. They've been, within a few, 30, 40 feet of me all day. But it's like we have 3 hours, and then we cook. I help cook, and then maybe do some cleaning, and then I'm exhausted. So thankfully we fill it with, it's screen time, but it's like us playing things together, like playing a co-op game together, or we'll play Uno or some of those. But sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to go out and be around everyone. Not to anything bad against the family. It's just being honest of sometimes I'm just I'm talking to people all day. I'm looking at millions of screens and tabs all day long in my IT job. And I'm just I want to just cuddle up with a cat on the bed and just not have to think about pleasing anybody. And I know you guys don't expect that of me, so I don't mean it like that, but it's definitely something I'm okay, I need to, you know what I mean? They are going to bed soon. I need to go make sure I'm spending time with them because that is valuable and I do love them. And there are days we spend 15 hours with them straight, and I love it. I don't think anything about it, but it's like those times where it's like 2 hours and they're all hyped up and I'm just like exhausted, and it's like hard to like, and maybe you guys deal with that too, but you know, when they come over, you're just like, it sounds fun for them to come over, but I'm also exhausted. It's kind of nice if we can just play games together, or just something sitting down on the couch. Like, it's definitely something I struggle with. So,
yeah.
I think these are the kinds of things where you know, if you have a relationship with God, like, that's where that grace comes in, because you care so much, and that's why you worry about it.
Yeah.
But to understand that, I think it's healthy to do like self-analyze and find places where you can improve, like make improvements or assess whether things are going well or not, or the needs of the kids emotionally are getting met and that kind of thing. Like, go ahead and do that. I think that's a really healthy thing to do. But also remember, God's grace covers it all. And, you know, we're kids are pretty resilient. They grow into adults, and we have our issues for sure from childhood. But, you know, God's grace is good. And I think if you're not abusing your kids, you know, obviously there's extremes of things that are not good.
Sure. But it kind of brings up a point, and you guys have brought this up a lot. And I think even in the context where we started, we're talking about, like, you brought up, you know, hey, how do you feel you did, or you know, you feel like there's failures or stuff. You guys are right in the middle of it. We already did it. But the problem, like, I'll start by saying this. Like, so when I dropped my oldest child off at college, I guess at the time, up until that moment, I thought, hey, I was doing the best I could. I loved my kids, and I really, like you said, when I spent time, I really wanted to spend time with them. But I didn't really even question whether or not I was a good dad. The moment I drop him off and drive off, and I go to a hotel and sleep, because my flight was early in the morning, get to the hotel, and I just started bawling. I just fell in the bed and just bawled for like 2 hours, just thinking, what if I just was a total bad dad? It's too late, you know? And so it was just it hit me out of left field. It was very weird. The reason I bring that up is that, you know, kids are not just resilient, but they're also brilliant. Like, they're way more capable of understanding things than we give them credit for. And wouldn't it be a better thing if we wonder if we're doing enough work-life balance, if we wonder if they're wanting us to be around more, if we're wondering, like, why not just sit down and talk to them
really
about
good.
it, you know?
Yeah, and something I read in a book or something, I think, I couldn't tell you which one it was, but was, because I remember I was like just thinking about all this kind of stuff at one point of like, how do you not like cause your kids childhood trauma when they're older, you know? Like, obviously, I don't think we have any like big, huge traumas we're causing them in our household, like abuse or something like that, but it's like, but there can still be things that, you know, when they get older, like, they're like, yeah, things like that. Like, oh, I felt like my parents didn't spend enough time with me, or they didn't care about my emotions, or they, you know, there's all sorts of ways that kids can grow up and feel like, oh, there's something my parents did that really like hurt me or something. And one of the things that I read was like, you're going to make mistakes because you're human. You're never going to be the perfect parent all the time, every day. And so, but what you can do is repair things when they get broken. So if you make a mistake and you apologize to your child, then that's not going to cause that lasting scar that they're going to have this trauma from it, because it's been repaired. It's when you make those mistakes, especially if you're doing something constantly, and then you never apologize for it, you never talk to them about it, and then they grow up to be an adult, that's when it causes those kinds of like lasting traumas. And so that was like comforting to me, because it's like, yeah, of course, like I can't get so worked up about it, like I'm going to mess up my child because I make mistakes, or I got mad and I yelled at them one day, or I did this or that. And it's like, yeah, but if I can recognize when I've made a mistake and I can apologize to them and make it right and mend that relationship with them, then they're going to be okay. Like, of course, they're going to be upset about things when I make a mistake, but...
Or maybe they won't.
Maybe
being honest, like maybe they won't be okay. Like, for anyone listening, it's like, oh, that's all I got to do is apologize. But it's like, you don't know, and that's kind of what you're getting at. Like, it's out of your control to some extent, but doing what you're saying, like apologizing, it's the least we can do as parents of like, I always hated like the whole talking to your kids like they're kids. And don't get me wrong, so you have to get on to your kids about the same thing a million times, right? You don't have to do that with adults normally. But
what adults do you know?
True.
Sorry.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, it's good, in my opinion, it's good to treat them to an extent, or talking to them, especially when you're having deeper conversations like an adult. So I do that with our kids. Like there's times where I'm putting them to bed and they'll just make a remark where they're like, hey, hey dad, can we talk? And I'm just like immediately like, I don't care what else is going on. That's what I'm focused on right now. Cool. And I just hear them out. And I specifically try to remind myself not to condemn them, even if they did something really bad, because if they're coming to me and they're great kids. So there's nothing that I could, I don't have great examples of this, but there are a few where they said something and I'm like, man, I want them to come to me when they do the worst thing that you could ever imagine that your kid could ever do. Like
you're practicing with those things that aren't as bad. You're basically setting that baseline for them so that if you don't freak out and condemn them and you have that grace with them over these little things, then when they become teenagers or young adults or something, and they know that you're a safe place to go to. And
that's exactly the thought process in my mind, is that we're showing them how we're going to react. Right, because all they're ever going to know is how we treat them. Right. So it's making the baseline be grace, like you're saying, and it's hard. We don't always do it, but there's certain moments where you could just tell there's something wrong, or they're like upset about something, or feel ashamed, and you're just like, okay, like this is a great time for us to like do something different. Because my first reaction is to get angry. Like, it's like almost always my first reaction when something's going opposite of how I want is just to get really upset about it, and like, so that's something that's helped with my kids, I think.
I think something that helped me was I read this book about like how kids' brains work. And it was really helpful for me to understand that like their logic part of their brain is really not developed very well as a kid. And it's very slowly developing all the way up until like, I think like 24 or something. So to understand that especially like toddlers, like, a lot of times they're not trying to be naughty. They're not trying to do something bad. They're just wanting to explore and have fun. And they just see something and instinctively like, oh, I want to do this. And they don't have the logic to go like, oh, that's dangerous, or that's unhealthy for me, or that's rude, or that's whatever. And so to kind of come at it from that perspective of, I understand this, but they don't. And so instead of just being mad and treating them like they're this bad child, come at it like I'm trying to teach them so that next time they do understand that this is not good for them to do, but kind of coming at it more of a teaching perspective than a punishing perspective when they're too young to even understand fully what that means.
And in that teaching moment, not just telling them you shouldn't do this calmly, but teaching them why. And they're not going to get that the first round. But if you keep doing that and you explain to them, because you're right, like they just start to understand logic and abstract thinking, like at age 7 they begin. So definitely under 7 you're not going to make that connection with them. But if you can start to explain why and teach them about compassion and having understanding that other people, if you're doing something that's rude or mean to their sister or whatever, then you can start to explain to them. But the way that, because it's not if you tell them how the sister is feeling, that that's abstract and they can't understand that. So if you flip it on them and have them try to verbalize and explain how they might feel in that situation, or how do they feel when that happens to them, then you can make that connection to say, well, that's how you made your sister feel. And that's, that love, having love for your sister is not, doing those things because that's how you're making her feel or whatever. So
you wouldn't want her to do that to you, kind of thing.
Right. But having that why explanation, I think really helps, because it might, like when I grew up, it was because I said so was the answer to my why questions. And I think I had a disconnect growing up. I was just fearful of punishment instead of really understanding why I should do certain things and not do other things.
And think about the parallels of what you're all talking about with our Christian walk, with legalism versus grace, with our approach to God. It's so cool what we're talking about. Because as you do these things with your child, as you explain the whys, instead of just flipping out every time they do something and you punish them, if you do that, you're training them, and like Michael said, it's not that you never punish them. It's not that we don't. There has to be discipline. We're not saying that, but there's times where it's more important to actually teach them about grace, because how are they going to receive grace from God if they don't think that's a real thing? If they think that every time that anybody does something, they have to pay the price for it, then it's going to be very difficult for them to receive the true message of the gospel, which is you do deserve that punishment and I'm not going to give it to you, which is what's called grace.
Yeah.
And that's why legalism is such an awful disease in the church, because it pervades all the way into the parenting, and then that preconditions that child to approach Christianity in the same way. And so they're very attracted to these legalistic movements of, because it just feels right to them. Well, yeah, I want somebody. I actually had, when I was a preacher, I had a guy come up to me and say, wow, I like it when you're a little more fiery. That's what I need to hear. That's what, I just, the more you say things that just seem like they're, punishing me or something. And I'm like, gosh, I didn't think I ever was like that. So I actually felt the opposite of what he thought. I wasn't like, I was thinking, wow, really? I do that? I don't think I ever do that. But it made me sad for him that he was receiving that way, that's what he wanted from God, was punishment. And I think, man, I get it. I get the psychology of it. And I just want to tell people that that's just wrong. And so what we're talking about isn't just sort of a cool way of parenting. It's also an awesome way of letting them understand and be a part of the kingdom. And it goes into that explaining part too, because that's another thing that the church has been notorious for. Not all churches at all times, I don't want to say that, but a big swath of the church movement and of Christianity has been a lot like you said your parents were. Do it because that's the way we do it. Don't ask questions. Don't touch the anointed. We were told one time when we just asked a simple question about something. And he wasn't talking about Jesus. He was talking about himself, as though, we can't ask a question of a pastor in church because he's the anointed and we can't touch him, and it's like, that's destructive, folks. That's just super destructive. And to talk about what's not destructive is teach your kids this, teach them to expect that if people are rational and reasonable, and there's times you're going to have to put you got to be consistent. Hey, we're going to take your cell phone away if you do that. And then if you do it, you need to take the cell phone away. Yeah. But you don't need to take it away and jump up and down on it and throw it against the wall and scream at them and all that kind of stuff. You need to say, see, I said I was going to do this. I'm going to have to do it. I know you're not going to want that. Or it could be something worse than that. But then take the time to talk to them about why were you so frustrated? Why did you go ahead and do that when you knew you weren't supposed to? That kind of thing.
Sure.
And open up, like you said, just the more we can open up to those deeper discussions, we're allowing them to be deeper than just a bunch of robots that, when they go off the path, we smack them back into it or whatever.
And in that discussion, you're modeling, if you can be humble and approach that conversation with humility, you're modeling that humility with them too, and showing them that you're, like on our submission podcast, Taylor, you were talking about children a little bit and talking about coming up underneath them, and we were talking about that with all sorts of things. But with your children, like, our mission is to raise them up to become, productive, God-loving, spiritual, wonderful people as adults. And I think for us to be able to come up under them and support their mission, and in that, what we're doing with them and in raising them, that to not get caught up in our flesh in that, and remember that that's the mission. And sometimes we do get in our flesh and we do shout and yell or whatever. And that's where that grace comes into and self-analyzing. But just being able to approach them in that humility, because then they see that and they can model that. They can understand that they're loved and they're valued and they are respected, and then that helps them to know that. Because and then you can hand them over into their relationship with Jesus, and he's also that. So it's modeling that for them.
Yeah, giving them the why behind those things, like you guys are saying, is, I think, helps when they do make that transition to being an adult and making their own decisions. It helps them make those wise decisions because they've been trained up by you of how to make wise decisions, instead of just
Amen.
Here's what you do and don't do. Here's the answer all the time. But how do I find the answer myself? And also, if the only consequence was ever just a punishment, if the only reason they're obeying or doing what's right is because they're going to get punished if they don't, well, what happens when you're no longer there to punish them? But they don't have any reasoning themselves to figure out what's good and what's right and what's wrong, and they have no way of guiding themselves. But now you're not there punishing them. Well, what's to keep them now from just going off and doing whatever they want to do that's not right? If they don't have that self-motivation of, hey, I want to do this because it's the loving thing to do, or I want to do this because it's wise, or I want to do this because this is what God would want for me to do. If they don't have that kind of thinking because they weren't trained with that, then
Yeah,
that's really good.
I had a couple of things I wanted to say. Sorry, it's going back quite a few minutes.
Go back.
You were mentioning talking to your kids and trying to explain it other than just saying, because I said, right? And you mentioned something like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying sometimes you're trying to explain it from the other person that they hurt's perspective and they don't understand it, and you're like, hey, you put it into, like, you apply it to them. I thought one thing that was interesting, though, is that I feel like when you're adult, we sort of do the first one you mentioned. Isn't how I don't think about how I feel as much anymore when I've hurt somebody. I try to think about how they feel.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying don't train them to not have.
No, I know that. No.
Compassion.
Sure.
I'm just saying because of abstract thinking.
Exactly. No. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it's kind of funny though that when you get older, that perspective shifts back to what you were first saying.
And it should, and you should, as a parent, help them as soon as their abstract thinking comes into play. Then help them transition that to have compassion.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was interesting because we did so many studies on near-death experiences and read books and documentaries and stuff. And one of the things that really caught my attention is that a lot of people had a life review. And when they had these life reviews after death, they all said that it was never from their perspective. It was always from the perspective of everyone else that was in the room.
Fascinating.
And it always, like every single time. And sometimes people were saying it went back, like, they'd do something at work that was nice, and they'd literally like leave their feelings and go into the feelings of the next person, and they felt the love or the hatred that they caused. And then I was thinking about that, and I don't know what God's judgment's going to be like at all. I don't know if there's any tie in between these near-death experiences and that, these life review things. But I think it's really cool because it's like, man, like look at how these people felt, and that's why I think love is so important. Because imagine like you're just living a life that's not loving, and you go and have these experiences, and all that you're experiencing is just how bad you hurt people. Like that just sounds like hell to me, to be honest. But one other thing that I wanted to say is you guys both inspired me a lot over the last several years about having children and showing them grace. And I always like kind of had it in my mind of like, oh, that means I should be nicer. I should, be more patient and be almost more merciful with them, I guess is probably the right term. Like just don't punish them. But the grace is the next step. It's not just not punishing. It's giving them something they don't deserve in a moment that they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why Christ is so awesome. So I actually put this into practice. Do you remember that? It was like a month or two ago. And it was like the first time where I was like, I told Taylor, I was like, I'm going to like do what your parents have been teaching, and I want to see how she reacts. So I forget
totally backfired. We're so full of yes.
Yeah, you guys lied. Yeah, I'm done with the podcast. No, but I forget what she did.
Experiment strikes again. Sorry.
No, you're good. She like, I don't remember what she did. She did something probably stupid. Not because she's stupid, but just it's small things that she knew better than to do, and she did. And I was like, gosh, like I told her what would happen if she did it again is that she was going to go in a timeout for a half hour, which is a long time, but it's like it's the only way she'll listen is when it's like boring. So I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I told her I would do it. And then I was like, gosh, but I always do that. I always stick to it because I was always told, don't be wishy-washy when you tell them to punish them. You have to stick to it. I'm like, yeah, but what if you did what you guys have always said, which is, every now and then switch it to grace so they can get the concept. And I remember I talked to you about it, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I forget exactly what I did, but I basically was like, you're not going into timeout. And not only are you not going into timeout, but because we love you and we want to show you the grace that God has, right? Like it was trying to show her an example. I think we gave her something.
Like a dessert.
We gave her a dessert. And she was just like,
that.
I think she was just like in shock, like, whoa, hold on.
And I like that
awesome.
you you didn't just do the action. You took the time to explain to her, like, this was what you deserved to get, was this time out.
Very good.
And because you did this thing and we warned you and this is what you should have done. But yes, because we want to show you what grace is, like, that's why we're doing this. You didn't just leave it like, oh, we're just going back on what we said.
Yeah,
it's no
exactly.
big deal. It was like, no, it was a big deal. You broke what we said, but we're still going to give you grace.
Yeah.
So I think that was
That's awesome.
hopefully really good for her. But
Yeah, I hope that helped.
There are parents that believe, speaking of near-death experience, that that's a good way to parent. That'll hold them over the best.
Michael
Not
Jackson
us.
style. Blanket. No, it's called
Sorry.
flatlining. You have them plugged into a resuscitator.
We gotta have fun. Just kidding. Gotta break the ice sometimes. I wanted to get to bring up something you mentioned early on.
Sure.
Talk about going back. It was fascinating, and you all kind of commented a little bit on it, but let's dig into it a little bit. You mentioned the idea about apologizing, and I think for some parents are probably like, I'm not going to apologize to my kids. Like that's just showing my weakness, or they're going to take advantage of that, or whatever else. I would even go as far as some people have said when I brought that up about apologies, not just to your kids, but just people actually confessing and apologizing and being honest about their faults is so unheard of in the world. It should be commonplace in the Christian church, but it's unheard of in the Christian church too. I pointed out to you guys a lot, especially in leadership. They won't do it. And the reason they won't do it is because they'd be fired in most churches for apologizing or admitting their faults. But that's terrible. I've actually had, when I've talked to someone about that one time that was really bent on this, and what they actually told me, they said, well, Jesus didn't do that.
he didn't have a need to.
And I just came back and I said, we're not Jesus. We can't, I know you've been taught we need to emulate Jesus, but there are certain things we're not going to be able to. And the fact that we're not perfect means you can't act like you're perfect if you're not. Like he's the only one that could get away with that. So,
And our kids know that we're not perfect.
and I
We
think
can't
there's a powerful thing, like you said, they know it, and you're teaching them hypocrisy otherwise, right?
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
But if you apologize when you need to, don't over apologize. Don't be milquetoast. Don't don't just like, oh, I'm always going to be the one to take responsibility. I've seen that too. That's wrong too. Mm-hmm. Don't take responsibility for your kids' problems. No. But if you screwed up, doing that, it's just going to really start to train them up that again is a part of what it is to be a Christian.
Sure.
To be able to say, I messed up. And beyond just parenting, why don't we bring that back to Christianity? Why can't, if we truly believe that the whole point is that we're all screw ups and that Jesus offers forgiveness for them, why are we so afraid to admit our faults to one another? We build up this sort of, I look good and I need to look better than that person. They're really way up there. They look really good. And it's like, that's so not Christian. I know it's part of Christianity, Christian insanity, but it's not a part of what's true Christianity. So that's, here Jesus himself never made a mistake. And he still was one of the more humble people on the planet. And yet we want to, I'm really good, whatever else. I'm getting off the point, but
I think that what you bring up is really, in the general term, is authenticity. And I think when you have authenticity with your kids, so that you can have discussions with them, you can talk to them, you can allow them to express their feelings and their thoughts, you can be humble and apologize, and all those things that you're modeling to them, they're gonna soak that up. And I think that having that authentic relationship with them really helps in your relationship as they get older.
Sure.
And
So I do have one question. You guys have, struggled or learned over time, like the grace message, growing up legalistic, like I think, I did. And you guys definitely, I notice the difference in how you are now versus how you were even 5 years ago versus 10 versus 15 years ago. And I think it's because you've even gotten a deeper understanding of grace. And that's what we're all trying to do, is understand that and learn to love. And my question is, though, when you were young adults, were there times where before you understood grace completely, like you were parenting differently, and looking back, you're like, man, this is something that I wish I would have specifically done differently now getting grace for maybe for parents that are still struggling with that, not understanding it, maybe? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, I think we, I'm just being authentic and say praise God. I don't think I think we kind of pretty early on just wanted to talk to her because I think we wanted to break some cycles. Right
Yeah,
at the
I think
get-go.
for me-
I think we just were just really authentic with them pretty early on. I'm not saying we did everything right or we're just always super nice or didn't blow our tops or both of us. There were times. What was nice is I don't remember a single time where we both did it. So it was always, there was always somebody
good
there
cop,
to kind of
bad
be the
cop.
good judge. Yeah, and it changed
Yeah.
back and forth a little bit. But
I know for me, I saw some things as a young adult. Of course, now this is like in my book, so I'm not sharing anything that I haven't already shared. But I was pretty emotionally kind of traumatized, especially around the time of just having kids and stuff. However, by the time our kids were old enough to start getting in trouble
for
and
those of
stuff.
you that didn't read her book, I just want to infuse. It's not me that that she married me and then around the time she had kids, she was really emotionally traumatized.
Oh no! It's from childhood
You can read a
trauma,
lot into that.
childhood abuse.
Man, he
Okay.
must have been a monster.
No, you were helping me. You helped me tremendously. But for me, though, I saw things in me that I saw things in my relationship with my parents that I didn't like. So, like I mentioned, my parents would say, do this because I said so. Or I would get in trouble for things that my brothers did, or things that there were certain things that and I feared, like I was afraid of my parents, which I think that's a very common thing, especially in our generation. I don't know about now because I'm not your age, but in our generation, that was like you feared your parents. And I thought when I had our first baby and I looked at his little innocent face and I thought, I don't want to raise him to fear us. Like that was a terrible thought in my opinion. Like I don't want him to be afraid of us. And so there were several things like that I thought, I'm like you said, I'm going to break some things that are going on and not let them go another generation. Mm-hmm. And so one, I didn't want my kids to fear me.
Sure.
And thankfully, we were kind of getting the understanding of grace and communication by the time they were old enough to communicate. And I would literally usually the older two, Taylor and her brother, would like get into a little tiff or something, right?
Never. No, I'm just kidding.
But I do remember setting them down. I mean, even when they were 4 and 2, I remember because I think our son hit you at 2. No, I think you hit our son actually, because at 2-year-olds they hit. That's one of their things they do. And so I think you hit your brother, and then he hit you back. And so you're both like wailing, And so definitely before this abstract thinking thing, right? But this is where I think was kind of the beginning of where I would do this. I would sit you down, and then I would have you calm down, and I would make sure that each of you had the floor to express how you felt. And then I would gently ask you, like, what, and I explained to Zach that Taylor's just 2. That's what kids do. And I asked him if he was hurt, and he said, no, of course not, Mom. And he probably didn't say of course, but anyways, we just worked it out. We talked about it, and I asked him if it hurt, and I asked you if it hurt. And so that he could see your answer, and just having them communicate about that and start that process of showing them that they can start to have compassion for each other and understanding of each other. And that was kind of the typical thing. It got later to where I could just say, you know what, you two, because one of the kids would run up to me, Mom, so-and-so did such and such, And I would just say, go sit down and talk it out, work it out between the two of you. And yeah. I don't know. I think I walked off. I don't know if that's actually what you guys did, but I do think that you guys kind of worked it out, and you guys actually got along pretty well most of the time. I mean,
yeah.
So we just throw a sword between them both, and we're like, figure it out.
Last one standing wins.
It's a plastic sword, but
Yeah.
No,
But I do
that's
think
really good.
because of I know for me, like some of the things that I don't like about what I was emotional. I was angry, and I was hurting emotionally. And so I think I let a lot of my emotion out, and
But your desire to not put that on your child at a really early age was what drove her to get help, because and that is in her book, when she threw his bottle against the wall, and he's just like freaking out, like, what happened to my mom? And she saw that in his eyes, and she thought, that was the first time she'd done that. She's like, this isn't who I'm going to become. Sure. I need to get help. And I appreciated that. And funny little tidbit. It's funny. I got, for whatever reason, got the grace message like at a really early age. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really struggle with legalism. It was that I brought my family to church, and unfortunately the churches we went to were legalistic. And she talks about that in her book. She was just sort of predestined, or
programmed
for that to be a message she grabbed a hold of and stuff. And that we kind of had to work that out. But just so you know, I didn't really, I kind of like bucked the system pretty early on. The whole thing, just saw it for what it was. And so, took a lot of heat from that, from early churches and stuff that I disagreed with.
But I think as far as, parents who have maybe not had a lot of grace in their, maybe they're doing some things and some patterns that they think, my parents did this and this is kind of how it's always been done, and I don't want to do these things anymore. Like, I don't know. Think about your relationship with Jesus. Think about the grace that he has. Take those same concepts and look at your children. Your children are, it's not that children are to be seen and not heard, like my grandpa used to say, Children are valuable, and they have feelings, and they have a soul, and they have a spirit, and they're a human being. And I think just if you can take those same kind of concepts and the grace and mercy that you want from God, and look at it from their eyes and from their perspective in things. Like we have said, it's not like you don't punish your kids I always used to not like the word punish, because God doesn't punish us either. He disciplines us, but he doesn't punish us until we reject him. Right. If we reject him. So disciplining is an education. Disciplining is, there might be some timeouts in that discipline. There might be some sitting in the corners, or so that they can understand, because like us, God gave the law so that we could learn from it. It was our tutor. We had to understand that there is right and wrong. There is righteousness and unrighteousness. And I think as a little kid, they don't understand that difference. So you kind of have to let them know that, like when you were hitting your brother, like I had to teach you, that hurts him. Mm-hmm. And when you got hit back, that's how he felt, And so if you start that communication with kids and have them understand right from wrong in the context of that other person, and having compassion and teaching them about that compassion of that other person, like, you don't steal, bubble gum from the grocery store, because, that's not love. Like, kind of like what we've talked about in this podcast before.
That's sort of been our focus too, is not saying things like you're being naughty, or like stop being so bad. And normally it's like, oh, it's not very loving to do that. Like, that hurt my feelings. Like, and typically they'll be like, oh, like, sorry.
Yeah, see, and I think that means more to them, because if you just say, oh, you're just being naughty, you're being a bad kid, then you're just kind of destroying their little inner self.
Sure, and it goes deeper than that too, even with I have a colorful vocabulary, not on the podcast because of the kids, but I do have a color vocabulary, and I know some people in the church are like, oh, that's a sin, I'm not going to get onto that, I disagree. But with our kids, one of the big things that we talked about before, when they were really young, is like, we're never going to say, don't say that, that's bad. Don't say those, you're not allowed to, they're bad words. We've always like, those are adult words, you don't say them now. Like, when you're older, you can say whatever you want, but right now, people are going to not understand why you're saying them. And it's been pretty cool with us. In fact, I think, we've only had like one or two slip-ups out there, man.
Like, I wish I would have known that. So thank you I had to listen to this podcast to get that, because I've been playing some video games with your daughters lately that are really intense, and some words come out. And the first thing I usually say is that same the old pattern. I'm like, oh, don't say that. That's a bad word. So now I'll change my language. I wasn't doing it right.
It's really funny because I guess it could have been risky to go that route. It was just like, it's okay for them to hear these words. They're going to hear these words.
Yeah, I think it's powerful what you guys decided.
And
I just need to do it better.
Though, like, they don't say them.
Yeah,
and it's like, sometimes we'll even joke with our oldest, like, come on, say the S word or something, and she won't. Like,
yeah, we'll joke around.
Won't. But it's but yeah, our thing about it has always been like, you're going to hear these words. You're not old enough yet to understand how to use them appropriately, and so we would prefer that you don't use it until you're old enough to understand that.
And they don't want to.
Yeah, there was one time when our oldest was, I think she was like 3 maybe, and we accidentally had the TV on, and this YouTube video came up or something, and the guy on there was saying the F word over and over again, and we were like scrambling for the remote because it just like came on, like, you know, sometimes you're like watching shorts or something and they just keep going, and so the one comes up with that, and we're like trying to turn it off, and she heard enough of it, and then for like that whole week a few times, like every day she just like say it.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing: the reason why people could be like disagreeing with it, like, oh my gosh, like you joke around trying to have your kids say it. It's not. We're not like some nasty, deviant parents trying to make our kids do bad things. I just think that it was funny because we could have, when she said those things, be like, don't, that's bad, you're naughty. Or it's like, hey, don't say that, you shouldn't say that, it's an adult word.
I like
and
that.
Honestly,
After
literally,
I
haven't heard her say a single word since then, and she's 8 now almost, and if she did, I don't really care. For me, the reason I don't want it is I just don't want other parents thinking, like, wow, I don't want my kid hanging out with them because they're dropping words that I don't want my kid hearing. Yeah. So that's why it's like,
well, that's what I'm saying.
When you're an adult, it's more, but it goes like that with anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, anything it is.
Words are just words, and you could be just as hateful saying some other word.
Yeah.
And that's the point. That's what we've tried to teach our kids is, it's not so much about the word itself. The word isn't a bad word. It can be used in ways that are just silly or joking as an adult that isn't hateful, isn't unloving, and if you're using it that way, that I don't think there's anything wrong with the word itself, but it's the heart behind what you're saying, and that should matter no matter what words are coming out of your mouth. It should always be loving toward the people around you, and so
exactly.
That's what we've tried to teach them. And
because you could say, that dress looks like, it's good for you. This is a put down, right? First, like,
exactly.
It's not the words like you're saying like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I like that's an adult word, because I remember growing up, my dad used to drink beer, and that was like, we knew as kids that was the adult's beverage. You know, like it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and again, explaining like we've talked about earlier in the podcast tonight, it's like explaining to your kids the why behind it. That will help them to have the motivation of, oh, I don't drink alcohol before 21 because it's dangerous for me. It could kill me. Like,
maybe a small sip at New Year's when you're a teenager. Not a big deal.
But the point is, like, explaining the why so that they're not just like, oh, no, because I said so. Well, then they're just going to be curious about it and maybe do it anyway. But if you give them the why, I'm not saying they might not still do it, even if you give them the why, but at least they might have a better chance of having that reasoning to go, oh, this is why I shouldn't do this. It's
or they'll know how to react if they do it and get in trouble, right? You know what I mean? Like, alcohol's been one recently. Like, I don't drink a lot, but if I do drink, like lately, we've been putting them in cool glasses because I've been like getting cookbooks that have a bunch of cool recipes. And Rainey will notice it, and she'll be like, oh, "I want that." And I'm like, I can make you a non-alcoholic version, but sometimes she's just like, oh, what are you drinking? Can I have a sip? And it's like, I'm not, it's like, oh, that's, you're not allowed to drink that. But I just explained to her, like, you don't want to drink alcohol, trust me. It'll make you so sick. And she's just like, oh, like, and she just stopped asking, like, her seeing that. It's like, oh, I'm good. So.
And maybe you could use a cool cup and make her some.
I do that.
Really, she said that.
And then I put the non-alcoholic one next to the alcoholic one in the fridge, and they're the same looking. She doesn't know which one she's getting. And I'm like, have fun. I'm just kidding. CPS. We don't do it. But anyway,
I like this. I like you guys' style a lot. My mom's style for a couple things was very effective, but I don't know that it was really the right. Like, I don't think we never had the guts to try it. But like with cigarettes, she didn't want us to smoke, so she forced like I was like 7 or 8 or something. She forced me to smoke part of a cigarette, and it was so bad. I choked and puked, and I was like, I never touched one my whole life. So I will say there are some other ways that are pretty effective, but we're talking about some pretty cool ways here.
Maybe that way.
So what do you?
Thanks, Mom. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What would we say? What would you guys say to somebody who's maybe has like preteens or teens, as some advice that maybe they haven't parented with a lot of grace and maybe they have a struggling teen or something? Like, is there something, little nugget or something that we can, in addition to anything that we've said already tonight about?
Well,
Go ahead, Dan, you got some?
As someone without kids, I feel highly qualified to say this.
Without kids that age.
Kids that age. Yeah, there are people confused. Like, what do you mean? No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I think we can say from experience, though. I mean, we were teenagers, 20 years ago? Wow, we're getting old.
Hey, no, not me.
If you're getting
I wasn't
old,
a
we're
teenager
really
20
old.
years ago. Hold on, I'm a little younger than you.
No, but I mean, there was, I don't know, like, my experience as a teenager there wasn't, like, any grace. Like,
Yeah.
there just wasn't. And it wasn't, I mean, I love my dad and stuff but there just wasn't a super loving household. And on either side of the family, both had problems. So I can't really say what would have been better out of experience. As I got older and my parents got older, it became easier to bridge those because we were mature enough to talk. But
Communication.
Communication, yeah. I feel like for me, Taylor kind of nailed it in the beginning of like, are you loving your kids? And I couldn't imagine how it feels to be a parent who has a teenager that you think at least hates you. Right? Now, if they actually do, I think that's a much deeper question or thing. Maybe they don't, that you just feel that way because of things they say. But for me, I would encourage people, I don't know, listen and give space. I know that that thing sounds like the worst thing you want to do. Like, I want to jump on things and fix it immediately. But if you're trying to do that and they're not reacting, sometimes really I just giving space and just telling them, hey, like I can,
I think
things aren't how we want. And I love you, but
I think a big thing is not making assumptions
Yeah.
about what your kids are doing. Like, have real conversations. Have, like we talked about, I don't think it's too late to start that authenticity. Like, if you haven't been super authentic with your kids up until now, I don't think it's ever too late. Like, oh, it's too late now, I shouldn't even bother. Like, I think, yeah, being real with your kids, having real conversations, but yeah, not assuming that they're doing something wrong that you think they're doing. Even if you see signs that you think it may be that you're misunderstanding the situation. And if you come at them accusing and assuming, that can shut them down immediately. And I think if you are open to hearing their side of it and hearing the truth from their mouth of what's going on, that can go a long way. And then having grace and not just jumping down their throat, even if it does make you mad, if they say something they're doing that makes you mad, trying to still have some patience to hear them out and have some grace with them. And I think that could be huge.
Having, I think those are great. I'd just amplify what you said. Having had teenagers and dealt with different styles and stuff like that, and also pastoring where we helped other people deal with some really troubled folks. I think we've kind of already laid it out. It's just more amplified when you're a teenager. But I'm just going to say this. By the time you're 13, 14, especially older than that, 16, 17, you're an adult. That person's not... It's not the time to treat them like they did when they're 5. So when they screw up and go off the handle and I'm going to take this way and I'm going to punish you and stuff like that. If you guys are just at each other's throat all the time, I would say, take a whole different tack. Take a lot of what we've said and apply it basically back down and say, look, I was a teenager once. Sit down with them and say, hey, I know what you're going through. I felt that same way. Man, let's talk about it. Or just, take a different tact. It's not time to be the overlord of that person. It's time for you to help them navigate. Take what we talked about, a submission, the whole concept of coming underneath a submission. You're underneath that person. Remember that your mission for that child, even if they are yelling in your face, like some kids are yelling in your face that they hate you, that doesn't change the fact that God gave you a mission to try and land that child in this world, knowing that they're valuable and loved, and believe you me, if you instill in them in that moment that they are valuable and loved, not I love you anyway despite what you're doing. That's not I would say I love you because of who you are, not from what you do. I don't like what you're doing, but I love you for who you are, and we're going to get through this together, and I'm here for you, and I'm going to the bat with you, and I'll even go and protect you even against the things that are going to happen bad to you because of the consequences. If you become an advocate, if you become the submitter, if you become the wind beneath that person's wings, they might still spit in your face, but that's your job when you decided to do the deed or adopt and sign the deed. No, I'm just kidding. You signed up for this till the end, and it's not when they're 18, it's till the end, till you die. So you know what? It's your job, and just love it. Love the job. It's the toughest job you'll ever love. That's what the military said. But I would just say sow yourself into it and back way down from the idea that you've got to break their habits or break their discipline or something like that. You need to instill in them value of who they are. That would be my advice.
Sure.
Beyond anything else, you know.
And don't be afraid of getting help. You know?
That's literally what I wanted to add on
Yeah.
to what Phil was saying. Is that like, as someone who remembers the time where I told my mom I think I have anxiety problems, like it hit me like I don't think this is normal how I feel. Like I don't think I should have this voice in my head, my own voice screaming at me constantly how horrible I am. Like when I had that moment when I was like 14 or 15, I didn't get actual help for it for a long time, like 5 or 6 years. And then I just settled with what I was given, and it wasn't good. And then I was like, I don't need this anymore. It's bad for me. And I got off, and it threw me through a spiral, especially as life got harder and people started dying and things started happening. Like I didn't know what to do anymore. It was like amplified everything building up over time, all the trauma and stuff that happened. And I feel like if you're seeing signs of depression or anxiety with your kids, like you do need to give them space. I think space is huge because I think a lot of parents helicopter, and man, I hated that. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you have your people on top of you constantly. But giving them space. But if you're seeing like a psychological problem, or like, you know, they don't get out of bed. Like I think people are like, oh, he's a teenager, he doesn't get out of bed till 1. Like that's not normal. Like unless he's up till 8 in the morning, that's not like normal stuff. Like I was talking to an Uber driver. It's like my kid, he crawls out of bed and falls asleep on the floor. And he just doesn't come down till dinner. And then we go up there, and he's just there, like on the floor still. And he's like, I don't know what's up with him. And he was just nonchalant, like I don't know what to do. And he was a Christian, so we started talking. I was like, have you like talked about depression? He's like, oh, I asked him, and he said he's not. I was like, nah, dude. I was like, that's not how depression works. Like, no one's gonna admit I think I'm depressed, and people do that. I said stuff like that. There's other people that tell their parents I'm depressed, and if your parents aren't acknowledging that this problem, like, and you're the parent listening to this, I would like encourage you, like, man, if you're I wouldn't just be like, hey, are you depressed? Like, but just be like, hey, like,
no, I'm good.
Man,
Okay.
like showing the love is a great stepping stone, and maybe, you know, you're not gonna get them a doctor tomorrow. It might take a few weeks or something to like for them to start trusting you again once you do back off and start explaining to them, I love you. Like, can we talk more at your pace, at your time? And then, and you know, be like, hey, like, would you like to talk to somebody about this? Man, I remember how I was when I was your age. Like, man, this is really tough. I understand. Like, what can I do to help? And get like throw the ball in their court, man. When you're a teenager, you want to be the boss. You know, like you were saying, when you tell your kid not to do something when you're a teenager, it's like, dude, you're not going to tell a 13-year-old you're not allowed to go out with your friends. Like, they're going to either be in the room hating you until they go out again, or they'll do what a lot of kids do and sneak out.
Yeah.
Or do something the next time they can get out, they'll be like doing some spite you to get in trouble. Like I was like that as a kid.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just loving, patience, space, and then hearing them out if you see major signs of things.
I think along the lines of the mental health thing, I just want to bring up, because even you mentioned like kind of a postpartum depression thing. And I know you had other things playing into that as well from your childhood trauma, but I think for me, I definitely went through a time of like a postpartum depression or anxiety or a mix of both. I'm not sure. I didn't get officially diagnosed with it, but it can be really hard. And I just want to just encourage anyone that's might be going through that or has gone through that, but just, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to, if you just don't feel right, if you feel like you're getting extra angry at your newborn or I dealt with that, and you're not alone, and it's not unnormal of you to be abnormal to be feeling those things, and so just to
That's good.
I had to get help with it, and I had to reach out. I reached out to my mom a lot during that time, and eventually got help from the doctor. But it's like it's something that can really affect it, and it'd be really difficult. So, but yeah, just any kind of mental illness, like you're saying, just
It's okay to take medication.
it's okay to take medication if you need it. It's okay to talk to people.
Yeah.
It's not
This world is
taboo
harsh.
to have a therapist, or
Yeah.
like it's normal. It's human. I think everybody at various times in their lives need that. They need somebody to talk to, whether it's a family member, a close friend, a therapist, a doctor, or whatever. It's like we all need that at times, and it's not doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you whatever.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being weird.
Weird in a bad way. I mean, it doesn't make you weird in a
Yeah,
bad
I think that's all really good stuff.
Praise God.
So
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Love. Every decision. Anybody got anything else on their mind?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously all this is great and everything else, but there's still, it's still no magic answer. Just keep going. Just
No.
keep loving, because
Seek
it's,
God, trust
you
Him.
can try
Yeah,
all the
pray-
right stuff. And
pray a lot.
And it still can go up and down and south. I guess I do have one last thing, and I would say, having been through personally and also watched being a real integral part of other people's struggles with really hard situations, depression to the point of suicidal things like that, I will say that all the things we're talking about today, at least in the situations I know about, actually turned out in a really awesome way in the end with the people. And so don't give up hope. It might look bleak right now, but just keep trying, keep loving.
Yeah.
God's
and,
good.
and know that that love does make a difference in the end.
It really does.
So
Awesome.
Amen.
Well, great. Well, I guess we'll see you next season.
yeah. Wow.
Next season here in a few weeks.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks for joining.